All right. Hey there, everybody. I am just here doing a quick systems check. We are at my in-laws' house for Thanksgiving, and so I had to transport all of my stuff here with me so that I could host the show today. Typically, when we have these holiday shows, Andy will be able to host, Coach will be able to host, but this is the way that it worked out today. So I think Andy will be able to be with me for the post-game show today. But just to be sure, I wanted to be ready. So I've got all my stuff, got my microphone, got my camera, but what I'm a little concerned about is just the upload speed, the connection speed, and so that's why I wanted to do this test and kind of see where we're at here. So if you can let me know how it looks, how it sounds, especially if the video is choppy or doesn't look good, I may have to do audio only. So anyway, just let me know. Hopefully it all looks good. All right, good. Megan said the audio is good. Hopefully the video looks good. So just let me know. We'll go through this for a little bit, and I just want to see, over 10, 15 minutes if it all, stays good. And I promised I'll be showered and look a little bit more kempt once once the actual show starts. And maybe open up these windows so that we get a little bit of light in here so it doesn't look so dark. But good. Everybody said sounds good. Video seems smooth. Excellent. Excellent. I appreciate you all checking in and letting me know. So a few people submitted some questions on Twitter because I don't want this to be a total waste of your time here. So let's just go through and answer a few of these questions. Let me open this up. Oh, yeah, we did get a few. Man, I'm so happy that this worked. It was worth it to unpack everything and bring it all here and set it up. It was actually easier than I thought it was going to be. So all good. Okay. So let's just go through and answer a few questions. Let's see. Buddy Hooperazzi, Joel, says, when does Devontae start? I love that Armand is getting reps, which will serve him well down the road, but Devontae is clearly the best option at the 2 spot. I mean, it feels to me like any day. I really think that once Devontae and Rob are healthy enough to, get their full allotment of minutes, they'll be out there starting. I feel like the reason why they've been coming off the bench probably has a little bit to do with just wanting to limit their minutes some. And a good way to do that is in the first half, especially when your team, for the most part, has been getting off to pretty good starts, which Indiana has been getting off to good starts in the first 4-8 minutes of games. It's really later in the half that they've kind of hit the skids a little bit. But I would have to think soon. I would think the Florida State game, you would want Devontae in there to start the game. But we'll see. Archie also gets comfortable with starting lineups and likes to keep them going. So it wouldn't shock me if Devontae doesn't end up, starting until a little bit later than that. But I have to think, I would think, given how much he's played and how well it appears he is doing, that he would start this South Dakota State game and kind of get ramped up with the lineup that you'll then start for Florida State. Hopefully Rob's a part of that, but we'll see. I agree with the premise. I love the reps that Armand's getting. It'll serve him well down the road, but I think, his role on this team is most likely to be a guy who comes in off the bench, a steady defender, a guy who can really be a good, ball mover and kind of cog in the offense, but not a featured scorer like Devontae is. So I would have to think that Devontae will be starting again soon. Let's see. From Mr. Courtney, preseason questions that have been answered, meaning what questions has the team answered for us? Not a lot, really, just because of the competition. I think we're all, it's one of those things. It feels like every show we do, every time we talk about the team, it's like, well, now we're going to have to wait and see if this continues on once the competition gets a little bit better. So what are the things that have been that feel like they have been answered that we can kind of carry forward? I think free throw shooting is number one. This team is clearly better from the free throw line, and now we have a long enough sample size, I think, to believe in this. Oh, this gives me a good opportunity. By the way, the other thing that I need to check. Tell me if you hear that hallelujah sound, because I want to make sure that I've got the sounds working too. Talking about the free throws was the perfect time to do it, because the free throw shooting has been better, and that seems like the kind of thing that will translate. I think the other question that's been answered is what kind of identity will this team have offensively? And Indiana talked a lot in the offseason about being a team that really wanted to play to its strength and go inside, get to the free throw line, be a team that really focused on the glass and that protected the basketball. And outside of maybe one game where they didn't really get to the line very well, and obviously that last game against Louisiana Tech when they didn't take care of the ball very well in the second half, I think they've done that. So, I think we have the question answered for what kind of offensive profile does this team want to have. Now, we don't know if it'll work, and we don't know necessarily if they'll be able to go to a plan B or a plan C effectively, but we certainly know what they want to do offensively. To the point or to the extent that was a question, I think it's been answered because they've essentially played the same way no matter who's been in the game, even with kind of the rotation that they've had at guards because of the injuries. So I think that question has been answered. I think, Jerome Hunter's health to a certain extent has been answered, at least to the extent of, hey, he can get out there consistently each game. It's almost easy to forget now, but just 3 or 4 weeks ago, we're still wondering, hey, is this guy going to be able to play? And even though they told us he was going to be able to play, you didn't really feel like you could believe it until you saw it, and now we've seen it. So, will he be able to handle 25, 30 minutes a game at some point, and will his play, warrant that? I don't know. Those are all still questions out there. But he clearly is going to be a guy that, until further notice, is a guy that you can count on to play consistent minutes off the bench. I think Trace Jackson Davis has answered questions in so much as, is he ready to start and be a featured guy on this team? Good gracious, yes. I wasn't quite sure what to expect from him. I thought he'd be good. I didn't know that he'd be this good this early. Now, again, that's another one we have to wait and see how good and how much of this translates to better competition, and he'll have some ups and downs, but he's certainly ready to be one of this team's most important players. And, it's like every lineup that you kind of make where it's like, okay, what do you think is the best starting lineup, the best finishing lineup, the best lineup against this matchup? You kind of start with whatever guards are healthy and Trace, and then you like mix and match around it. So I think that's obviously been a question that's been answered. And I think from a shooting perspective, is this team going to be a more efficient outside shooting team? I think that question has been answered, a lot. I mean, in my mind, it's going exactly how I thought it was going to be. They would be a low-volume, high-efficiency outside shooting team. That maybe not high efficiency, but solid efficiency outside shooting team, and that's exactly what they've been. So that's good to see. Now, at no point in there did I really mention defense, and I think the defensive side of the ball still has a lot of question marks. Now, ironically, if and I talked about this on a previous show, if you ask me right now, I still feel more confident in our defense long term than I do our offense. And I realize that flies in the face of what we've actually seen with our eyes through the first 6 games. But, I think Archie's teams, they get better defensively historically. And I think we have a lot of the parts and pieces to be good defensively, but we've also got young guys that are still getting their first reps together and, period in this defense. So I think the defense has a long way to go, but there's still a lot of questions there. So none of those questions have been answered, but I still actually feel more confident in the defense long term. Now we'll see, whether that proves to be true, but that's kind of how I feel. So those are how I would answer all those that question, Courtney, in terms of what questions have been answered. But now we've got to see, how is this team going to play on the road? How is this team going to play against even athleticism? How healthy are the guards going to be? How effective can Indiana be against good competition if they don't have all 4 of their guards healthy and ready to go? Who is going to emerge as another shooter off the bench that you can really count on? Like, on and on. There's still a lot of questions, but I do think, some of those questions, especially offensively, we've gotten answered. Now we'll have to see how much those answers carry forward. Howard asked who has had the most disappointing season. I'm going to say Nick Westbrook, so he's talking football. I don't follow it closely enough to give you a good answer on that. I mean, yeah, I guess Nick Westbrook would be a guy that you could put in there. I don't know. I don't study the football team closely enough to be able to give you an answer that I feel comfortable in. That's worth espousing, to the huddled masses that are here watching this impromptu systems check. So I'll leave that. Will the IU Purdue game be on at Assembly Hall? Yes, I believe I saw that pass through on Twitter that it will be on on the big screens at Assembly Hall. So you can watch Indiana close out their victory over Purdue there. Now, here's an interesting one. Would you take a 4-2 December record if offered right now, or take your chances for better? At the beginning of the season, I would have said take 4-2, but now I'm feeling a little bit more confident. So this is from Zach, and then I asked him, do I get to pick which 4? He said, let's go with the 4 being Florida State, UConn, Nebraska, and Arkansas to make it a little bit more interesting. So if you had told me that the 4 included UConn, Notre Dame, and Wisconsin, meaning that I could bank Indiana winning the 2 neutral court games and the road game right now, I might have taken that. And the reason why is because those 3 games are going to be so important for the NCAA tournament selection process later on. And it certainly would be disappointing to lose a couple of home games, no question about it, but less damaging, I think, to the tournament resume than coming out of December, with only getting one of those games that are away from Assembly Hall, because that's what Indiana's going to have to show. Now, the only reason that that I would think about that is I'm just worried about the guards. I'm worried about what Rob's status is, and I'm worried about when Indiana faces some of these better defensive teams. Like Florida State's really good on defense. Arkansas is really good on defense. I'm worried about how we're going to go to that plan B, that plan C, what we're going to do when we hit those droughts and we don't have the quarterback of our offense out there. It really worries me. And I don't think to a big extent, we haven't really seen that be an issue in these first few games. And defensively, Rob makes such a big deal. So I'm a little worried about December because of that. And so that's why I would consider, hey, if I can bank 4 victories, let me do it. But I think, Zach, with that specific example, I would hold out, because I think this team can and needs to do something more away from home. So I would hold out, trust that. Good gracious, it got dark in here, didn't it? Okay, so I got to open up that window. How about this light? That's a little bit more light, although it's kind of odd. All right, so I need more light in here. In fact, let me turn on this light and see what that looks like. Be right back, and you guys can tell me if that looks better. Okay. A little better, but I still need the light coming from there. All right, so I'll open up the window. By the way, yes, wearing the Bison logo T-shirt. Yes. Okay. So that's my answer to that question. Let's see. We've got, what's the Hoosiers ceiling this year, Big Ten and beyond? I think the ceiling is, I think this team could finish 4th or 5th in the Big Ten. I think they're going to be really hard-pressed to finish above Michigan State, to finish above Ohio State. And then you kind of just play the odds and figure that either Maryland or Michigan will be really good just because they have more talent and experience than Indiana. But I think the ceiling would be that everything comes together for Indiana and they can finish 4th or 5th, possibly above one of those teams. That, to me, is the ceiling. And then, you do that, and you're probably, depending on what games you've won, what games you've lost, you might be a 4, 5, 6 seed in the tournament. And I think this team, with the right matchups, could make a Sweet 16. And that, to me, is probably the ceiling. I guess they could do better than that, but that's what I would project. I mean, like, if they did that, that would be really, really good. I still look at the baseline as, let's finish top 6 or 7 in the conference and make the tournament. And if some things go their way, I think they could finish a little bit better than that. So hopefully they do. Is Florida State the best team in the ACC? Would a win against the Seminoles mean for this team? Let's see. And then we got a response to that tweet that said, I watched FSU last night for a little bit. They are big and athletic, but don't shoot very well. They play good D. We will need to hit the boards hard and hit jump shots, as I don't think we will be able to score inside. So I have not seen Florida State play. I can tell you that they are 6-1 with that one loss coming at Pittsburgh. So they've won 6 in a row because that was their first game of the season. They are currently 16th in KenPom. They have beaten Florida and Tennessee, so obviously they have 2 victories, much better than any victory that Indiana has so far. They are 4th in adjusted defensive efficiency, and they are, they're really good across the board, from a defensive perspective. So I tend to agree with this. I think that's going to be a great challenge for Indiana's strategy of going inside. Now, the one thing that Florida State does, or at least that they've done so far this year, is they do foul. So they defend inside well. They don't give up a very good 2-point field goal percentage, but they do foul. They put their opponents on the line with a free throw rate of 40%. And that plays into, to Indiana's hand some. But Florida State, and then they're a pretty good offensive rebounding team, but they haven't been a great defensive rebounding team. So I think for Indiana, they're going to want to, play to their strengths. They're going to want to still get the ball inside and try and get to the line. They're going to want to get offensive rebounds. But I tend to agree. I think Indiana's going to have to knock down some outside shots. And Florida State is, they give up a decent amount of threes, but they've defended it well so far. So, I'm really looking forward to that game because I certainly agree with the premise that that's going to be Indiana's first game against really athletic competition, the first real challenge inside to guys like Trace Jackson-Davis. I think that, it's going to be a tough game for Joey Brunk. I think Race Thompson is going to be really important in that game to come in and defend, give Indiana a little bit more athleticism down low, some offensive rebounds, some scoring, that kind of thing. Yes?
Are you actually taping?
Yeah, it's a quick Q&A because we just did a systems check, but everything is good. I'm almost done, though. Okay, I got to get off here. So that's what I think about the Florida State game. All right, thank you, everybody. for coming on here, letting me know it all works. Hopefully, it all works later today. I'll get a little bit more light, so it's better. But yeah, go Hoosiers, beat Purdue, and then join me and Andy for the post-game show after the IU San Diego State game. And assuming everything is good, I'll do a halftime report as well. So it'll be like normal. I'll just have a little bit of a different background. All right, everybody. Thanks. Go Hoosiers.